If you've ever felt like $100,000 should mean more than it actually does in your life right now, you're not imagining things, and you're definitely not bad with money. The number $100,000 has been culturally coded for decades as the marker of having made it. A six-figure salary, a six-figure net worth. It's the number that shows up in movies, in career advice, in the way an entire generation talks about success. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody adjusts for when they use that number as a benchmark. $100,000 today does not buy what $100,000 used to buy, and the gap is bigger than most people realize. My name is Trinity, and today we're doing the actual math on why this number feels increasingly hollow, and why that feeling is a measurable economic reality, not a personal failure. Hit subscribe if you want financial content that validates your actual lived experience instead of comparing you to outdated benchmarks. And like this video if you've ever quietly wondered why hitting a big number still doesn't feel the way you thought it would. Let's start with the actual math, because this isn't a vague feeling, it's calculable. $100,000 in 1990 had the same purchasing power as approximately $254,800 today. Let that sit for a second. If your household income or net worth is $100,000 right now, you are not living the equivalent lifestyle of someone who had $100,000 in 1990. You're living the equivalent of someone who had less than $40,000 back then. The number hasn't changed. What that number can actually purchase has changed dramatically, and almost nobody adjusts their mental benchmark to account for this, because the number $100,000 still sounds the same, still carries the same cultural weight, even though its real-world power has been cut by more than half. This is the core problem with using any fixed dollar amount as a permanent marker of success. Inflation isn't a side detail. It's the entire reason the benchmark quietly breaks over time. Between 1990 and today, cumulative inflation in the United States has been roughly 155%. That means prices, on average, more than doubled over that period. Your parents' generation, or the career advice you absorbed growing up, was often calibrated to a dollar that simply doesn't exist anymore. When someone says, "I made six figures and felt rich," and they're talking about 1995, they're describing an experience that would require roughly $220,000 today to genuinely replicate. Let's make this concrete with specific categories, because abstract inflation numbers don't hit the same way real costs do. The median home price in the United States in 1990 was around $123,000. Today, the median home price sits well above $400,000 in most markets, and significantly higher in many major metro areas. That's not a 155% increase. In a lot of markets, that's a 300 to 400% increase, meaning housing has inflated faster than the general cost of living, which means the $100,000 benchmark feels even more hollow, specifically when it comes to the single biggest purchase most people will ever make. College tuition tells an even starker story. The average cost of a four-year public university education in 1990 was a fraction of what it costs today, even after adjusting for general inflation. Tuition has outpaced overall inflation for decades, meaning a $100,000 income today has to stretch across an education cost that has grown disproportionately compared to wages or general prices. If you're a parent trying to save for your child's education using the same dollar targets your own parents used, you're aiming at a target that's moved dramatically further away than general inflation alone would suggest. Here's where this gets specifically validating, because I want to be direct about something. If you compare your current financial position to what $100,000 represented a generation ago, and you feel like you're falling short, you're not failing some objective standard. You're comparing yourself to a number that has been quietly hollowed out from the inside. The benchmark itself is broken, not you. This distinction matters enormously for your mental health and your financial decision-making, because people who believe they're personally failing tend to make worse financial decisions, driven by shame and urgency, while people who understand the actual economic forces at play tend to make calmer, more strategic decisions instead. Let's talk about wages specifically, because this is where the gap becomes impossible to ignore. Median household income has grown over the past several decades, but it has not grown at the same pace as the cost of major life milestones, specifically housing, education, and healthcare. Wage growth has generally tracked closer to general inflation, while these specific categories have inflated significantly faster. This means that even if your income has technically kept up with general inflation on paper, the specific big-ticket items that define financial security, a home, an education, healthcare costs, have moved further out of reach relative to that income than they were a generation ago. This is why a household earning what sounds like a historically solid income can still feel like they're treading water. The number on the paycheck has grown. The specific things that number needs to buy in order to feel secure have grown even faster. It's not that people today are worse at managing money than previous generations. It's that the equation they're solving has fundamentally different variables than the equation their parents solved, even though the dollar signs look deceptively similar. Here's something that should genuinely change how you think about financial benchmarks going forward. Any specific dollar number you've internalized as the number that means I've made it needs to be treated as a moving target, not a fixed destination. If $100,000 represented security to you because you heard that number repeated throughout your childhood, that number was calibrated to an economy that no longer exists. The correct mental model isn't "I need to reach $100,000." It's "I need to reach whatever the inflation-adjusted equivalent of true security actually is today." And that number is almost certainly higher than whatever fixed figure got stuck in your head years ago. So what does this actually mean practically? First, it means you should stop measuring your progress against nominal dollar amounts from the past and start measuring against purchasing power instead. A raise that sounds impressive in dollar terms might represent stagnant or even declining real purchasing power if it hasn't kept pace with inflation in your specific cost categories, particularly housing in your area. Second, it means financial goals need to be revisited and recalculated periodically, not set once and left untouched for a decade, because the target itself shifts under inflation even when you're not actively changing your plan. Third, and this is the part that connects directly to long-term wealth building, this is exactly why investing matters more than simply saving cash. Cash sitting in a low-yield account doesn't just fail to grow. It actively loses purchasing power every single year that inflation outpaces its interest rate. If you have $100,000 sitting in cash earning minimal interest while inflation runs at even a moderate 3% annually, that money is losing real value every year, even though the number on the statement never goes down. This is precisely why historical comparisons matter so much. They reveal in concrete terms exactly what happens to money that isn't actively working to outpace the same forces that hollowed out the old $100,000 benchmark in the first place. Let's run one more comparison to make this fully concrete. If someone had kept $100,000 in cash since 1990, doing nothing but sitting in a basic account, they would need that account to have grown to roughly $254,800 just to maintain the same purchasing power they started with, before counting any real growth at all. Meanwhile, if that same $100,000 had been invested in a diversified portfolio, tracking the broader stock market since 1990, historical averages suggest it could be worth several million dollars today, dramatically outpacing not just inflation, but the original benchmark by an enormous margin. The difference between these two outcomes isn't luck. It's the difference between money that actively fights inflation and money that quietly loses the fight by default. I want to leave you with the reframe that matters most here. Stop measuring yourself against a number that was calibrated for a different economy. The fact that $100,000 doesn't feel like what it used to isn't a personal shortcoming, and it's definitely not evidence that you're managing money worse than previous generations did. It's a measurable, well-documented economic shift that affects everyone using outdated benchmarks, whether they realize it or not. Once you understand this, you can stop chasing a number that was never going to deliver the feeling you were promised and start building toward goals that actually account for what money needs to do today, not what it used to do decades ago. Drop a like if this finally explained why a big number never quite felt the way you expected it to. Subscribe if you want more financial content that deals in real numbers instead of outdated assumptions. I'll see you in the next one.